Well, that was pretty awesome. It's really shocking when I think about it just for a moment, how much time it took that group of people to make that video. I just can imagine how many takes it took to get good ones from that group. And to think about how much time it took for them to have those nice things to say. I mean, I can't even imagine how much footage, sort of went on the floor for that. But anyway, thank you, all of you who participated in that video, and all of you that are here tonight. I feel like there's a long list of people that I have to thank, and it's like the Grammys or the Emmys. Let me start with my third grade English teacher, my eighth grade baseball coach for really making me who I am. But seriously, there's a long list. Let me start with Tim Giuliani and Nick Abrams and the whole team and leadership team at the OEP for making this such a special evening. Jane and I have been in Orlando for 14 years. And we've been at this event virtually every one of those years, and it's a spectacular evening. It's a great night, and we've always enjoyed this night. The OEP is such an extraordinary organization. Some years back, I had the privilege, as you heard, to chair this organization, and when that occurred, we invited Jim Clifton, who is the then CEO of the Gallup polling organization. I distinctly recall conversations with him about one poll that he had conducted over many, many, many years in thousands of people in countries all over the world about the leading source of their happiness. And surprisingly to me, it wasn't their wealth, it wasn't their health, it wasn't their family, it wasn't even their faith. It was that they had a good job. A good job was the single greatest source of happiness to all of these people, literally around the world. The OEP's job of attracting, retaining, and growing talent and jobs in this community is vital. It's vital for our community, and they do an extraordinarily great job. And they've made it very special for me and my family tonight, so thank you, Tim and team. I'm pausing now because I want to thank Steve Hogan as the current chair, but there's so much I could say about Steve. I'm going to be really careful. Because Steve, we call him Hollywood because he's usually up here, not a guy like me. He's usually surrounded by cameras and videographers and that sort of thing. But Steve is the current chair. He's also the CEO of Florida Citrus Sports, and he and his leadership team just do an amazing job in our community. I've had the privilege of serving beside him and traveling with him around the country, and his focus on college sports and now music and soccer. He's become a soccer guy, if you can believe it. But what's most amazing is his reputation around the country is stellar, and by extension, our city, our community's reputation around the country is stellar as a result. He and his team are selfless, dedicated leaders to our community. They do an amazing job, so thank you, Steve. I have to introduce my family. Most of you don't know me with my family. You know my beautiful wife, Jane, who's here tonight, who's just stunningly beautiful tonight, and I'm so grateful. It's the greatest decision I ever made 43 years ago to marry her, but I have 3 beautiful kids, and they're all married, and now I have 6 kids, and they are all men and women of faith, and they love the Lord, and they've raised their kids that way. The greatest aspect of these people is our kids have, as you saw, 12 grandchildren, and there's nothing cheaper by the dozen, I can assure you, but they are prolific baby makers, and they are awesome. And can you just stand for a moment and so we can recognize you? And my twin brother, Tim, is here as well, who's honored me with his presence. Please stand. I'd also like to thank my team at StepStone Private Wealth, which is right here. I have the privilege of starting this business from scratch. Only in America can you just start a business after you dream a dream and build a company. And I get to go to work with this team every day and have for a number of years. We started the business just about 3.5, 4 years ago, and we've been so blessed. And this team makes me better every day that I go to work. So thanks to all of you. And lastly, I get to thank you because when we moved here 14 years ago, nobody asked me who my great-great-granddaddy was. They didn't ask me sort of what was the source of my income or what my history, my roots were. Or they didn't ask me who I married or sort of did I go to an Ivy League school. They just, Alex Martins was the first one who asked me, hey, come be in line to be the president and the chair of the OEP at the time, EDC. And it was sort of like, look, if you're willing to roll your sleeves up and get to work to make this community a better place to live and work, then you're our kind of leader. And to me, that is extraordinary. That doesn't happen. There's cities all over America where that doesn't happen. We take that for granted in this community, that you can just jump in, roll your sleeves up, and get to work in this community. And that's just one of the many ways that makes this community so special. So thank you, because you make it special by being so extraordinarily welcoming. Now I'd like to just make a few general observations, and maybe you've heard some descriptions about me to be relatively bold and forthcoming, so I won't disappoint. I was raised in a family of faith. I'm a faith-based guy. I'm a passionate guy about a lot of things, pretty much everything, I guess. But I'm most passionate about my faith because it has driven everything that I've done in my whole life. It's driven who I married, where I went to school, what I do for a living, and how we raised our kids. My parents taught us early on that more is expected from those to whom more has been given, and we try to teach our kids that as well. We were here just 2 years, my wife and I had just really been laser focused on work and had not gone west of I-4. I had just been going from Winter Park to downtown. And we went to the Citrus Bowl, and that's when we were confronted with sort of the stark reality of what we didn't know at the time, but we've since learned is concentrated generational poverty. And we made a commitment that just wasn't right. It wasn't just. It wasn't righteous. And the kids that are born in that zip code had no shot. They had no shot at a bright future, and we just said, we're going to play a part. Now, the irony is we had no idea what we were doing and had no clue, and we just started gathering people. I see Harold and Steve Hogan and Bill Diamond and Scott Boyd is here, and Bobby Miles and Eddie Moritan and Sandy Hostetter, and the list goes on and on and on. The folks at Advent Health, Lars and Cy Saliba and Orlando Health and others, and we just started gathering and asking questions, and we spent a year just asking the question, there's problems everywhere in this community. What specifically is the problem we're trying to solve? And that whole initiative and that effort became what is now Lift Orlando. And I always get credit for this, and Eddie and so many others, and the fact is it's literally hundreds and thousands of people that have contributed to make this whole effort as successful as it has been in 10 years, and yet we're just getting started. And we need to transform communities all over Central Florida and all over the state. We learned a great deal in the process. My dear pal Bill Diamond has been quoted, in the process of working to transform this community, we've in fact had our whole lives transformed from the effort. And we're not the same today. We are not the same because of what we've learned, because what we've been able to see and experience. We had to check our own opinions. We had to recognize that we were quite uninformed about poverty. And at times we had been judgmental about what causes families to be in poverty, and particularly the challenges we did not understand that families and children face in these areas of concentrated poverty. I tell you all this because if you knew my story and Jane's story, we would be the last people you would think that would ever be called to do this kind of work. As a faith-based person, we had been praying how God could use us in this community as we had moved here to sort of, as the book of Jeremiah says, to seek the peace and prosperity of the city where God has called us. But I tell you that because we would be the last people that you would think would have the calling or the passion or the skills to do that kind of work. There's so many things to be proud of in this community. It's a spectacular community. And so many of you, and I know many of you, work so tirelessly to make this community a better and better place. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say we're not done. There's work that yet needs to be done. And if you'll permit me, I'd like to highlight two problems, two challenges. Let's call them opportunities, opportunities for better solutions. The first is an issue that is near and dear, I know, to Sandy Hostetter and so many others in this room about affordable housing. We have an affordable housing challenge in this community. It's not unique to our community. It's prevalent all over America, but it's particularly acute in this community. When we built the first phase of 200 units at Lift Orlando of mixed income and affordable housing, literally the line was serpentine-like around the building, like our friends at Disney are used to, massive lines. We had to close the leasing office a couple of days a week to process the applications. We had over 15,000 applications for 200 units. That was like 5 years ago. The problem is so much worse today with the inflation and housing costs and food costs that we've experienced. It's estimated we're short 62,000 units, which means we meet 13% of the demand. That is unacceptable in anyone's book. Some years ago, when Jane and I were learning a little bit about just how to engage and so forth, we attended a homeless shelter, and there was a bunch of kids playing there, and there were black kids and brown kids and white kids. And so I got on the floor and I'm playing with these kids and having fun. And when it was time for us to leave, I was walking to the door with my wife, and this beautiful little African-American girl went running up to me and grabbed my leg and gave my leg this giant bear hug, and just to say goodbye to me. And it was so touching to me. And you know, I leaned over to my wife and thought I was whispering. My wife reminds me that I might have learned how to whisper in a sawmill. But I said, sweetie, this girl is so beautiful. I'd love to take her home and adopt her. And the director of the homeless shelter says, well, Tom, she doesn't need to be adopted. She doesn't need to have a home, or to have a family. She has a family. She just doesn't have a place to live. And it's like, okay, now if that doesn't move your heart, then we should talk, because you might have some other issues. But that moved my heart, and I just said, that's just not acceptable, and have been working diligently to bring that problem to a conclusion. To build affordable housing takes massive amounts of money, and that's a challenge. But money follows vision, and vision requires leadership. And in this room tonight and in Central Florida, we have all of that and then some. We can figure this out, and we have to do better in that. We have to fix that problem. A second, let's call it opportunity, is the challenge of inner city public schools. Most of us send our kids to the best public and private schools in the community. It might be Winter Park High or Boone or Bishop Moore, or it might be Lake Highlands or Trinity or some other places. And it would be very unusual for any of our children not to graduate from high school. In fact, it would be unusual for our kids not to go to maybe some of their top choices for college or what they want to do beyond high school. And if they're extraordinary students and they work really hard, they might even get into Clemson University. But But that's not the case in the inner city, where literally a third of these kids, a third, read at grade level, and less than that have math proficiency at grade level. I've learned a staggering and important statistic or fact that kids learn to read up until third grade, and after third grade, they read to learn. If you don't know how to read, you can't learn. And 2/3 of the kids in these inner city schools won't be able to learn. And if they can't learn, they will not graduate. And if they don't graduate, they are 8 times more likely to be incarcerated. Student graduation is one of the most definitive predictors of our city's future. I don't know about you, but that is just not acceptable at all in this city beautiful, in our community. The same Gallup polling organization I mentioned earlier, for 75 years has conducted a poll to evaluate student performance. The overarching conclusion of their poll consistently, and this is going to shock you, the number one reason that students don't graduate is because they have no hope to graduate. They have no hope. We have to give them hope. The problem is not a public school problem. We have great public schools in our community. Could they be better? Of course they could be. It is not a public school problem, and the solution is not waiting for Washington, D.C. or Tallahassee to fix this problem. It's a citywide problem. It's our problem, and we need to challenge people to come up with solutions. We here need to fix this. We have business leaders in this community. We have academic leaders right here in this room. We have nonprofit and government leaders. And what we do all day, every day is we gather data and we solve problems. We think strategically. We challenge the status quo. We hold ourselves and others accountable for results. And we don't settle for inferior solutions. If we apply that same skill set that we do all day in academics or in our business or nonprofit lives to tackling some of these challenges in our community, we can fix this. Communities all over America have these kinds of challenges. The ones that are really spectacular are the ones that recognize that the solution lies with them. They have to figure it out, and that's us in this room. Most of us have been incredibly blessed. We have a huge responsibility and an opportunity to be a blessing to others. We have the talent to do this. So I just want to ask you 2 questions. Do we really recognize that we have the potential, that it is our responsibility to own the solutions to problems? I just mentioned those 2 challenges. There's plenty of others. But do we recognize that it's up to us to do that? And then secondly, do we have the will to engage? Are we willing to take the time to do it? So many of you are already doing this. This is not an indictment. It's really more of a, sort of drop the gauntlet and make a challenge to say, hey, let's recognize that we can make Orlando even more spectacular than what it already is. Now, if you'll permit me, I'll close with a personal story. Some of you have heard me tell this story before, but I love this story, and it's about raising our kids. And so I did what all dads do, and I played sports, whatever. And my son Nate, who's here tonight, loved ping pong, and so we played ping pong together. And it was originally not much of a game. I'd win 21-2 or 21-3, and this is when he was like 25 years old or something. But actually when he was much younger, and then he started getting better, and it got to be a little bit more competitive, and then it was like 21-12, 21-15, and then there was a time when it's like, wow, he's actually really good. And so then I did what most dads would do, is I just started trash talking to him and got in his head a little bit, and then it prolonged my victory for a bit longer. But the moment when he realized that he was better than me, it was like game over. I mean, he would win all the time and just consistently win. And then, frankly, it just wasn't any fun anymore. So we had to pick a different sport. And now he beats me at pretty much every sport that we choose. But The point of all that is, it was the inflection point was when he realized that he was better than me. And when he did that, his game just stepped up, and it was sort of game over, and he could sort of make it happen. And that's my encouragement and my challenge to all of us tonight. I really genuinely in my heart believe this is an amazing place. It's a place, though, that I'm not sure we even realize how special it is, or that we have what it takes to address these kinds of issues and challenges in our community. And if you're so inclined to engage, call me. Call Tim and the OEP staff. Call Lift Orlando. Call UCF who's hosting this beautiful event tonight. Let's put our heads together and let's address and tackle some of these unbelievable opportunities for better solutions in our community tonight. Thank you for honoring me with your attention tonight, and particularly for this award, and have a blessed rest of your evening. Thank you very much.